Dreamers! We're gonna be a little bit quiet today because I'm not home alone. And after my last vlog was so rudely interrupted, I'm just being silly. Now I get to tell the stories that I was going to tell last time. With the recent release of the live-action version of Disney's Beauty and the Beast, I thought I would tell you guys some stories about the time when I was in the junior version of the stage play when I was about 12. And if you don't believe me, I actually dug out my script. By the way, my 12-year-old handwriting is terrible. So when I was in Beauty and the Beast Junior, when I was about 12, I got the wonderful opportunity to play the Feather Duster. In our version, the Feather Duster's name was Babette, but in the movie her name is Plumette, and I don't think it really matters much. My two favorite numbers to perform were Be Our Guest and Human Again because they were just so much fun and I got to do so many big fun arm movements and just dance around. My costume consisted of just a maroon shirt and an apron that were both tucked into a long sort of pinkish purple skirt that had white feather boas woven up and down all the way around that my aunt put together for me, as well as other feather boas that were attached to hair ties or elastics or whatever you want to call them. And I had one on each wrist, and then another one that was attached to a little hair comb that I stuck in the back of my head. There were so many feathers. If I went back to that stage right now and looked in the back corners, I bet there would still be feathers. Seriously, it shed like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I loved the costume, it was fantastic and it totally fit, but there were just so many feathers. So the way casting worked at my elementary school was there was the cast 1, which rehearsed on Mondays and Wednesdays after school, and then cast 2, which rehearsed on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning before school. I was in cast 2. And tying it back to the rest of my channel, one time I actually had a dream that got totally interrupted by my alarm so I could go to rehearsal in the morning. But my alarm made it into my dream before I left and I thought that a bomb was going off and it freaked me out. But now on to the actual stories of when I was in the play. So apart from being the Feather Duster Babette, I was also sort of our cast's unofficial Belle understudy, because the girl who played Belle was literally needed everywhere all the time, and sometimes she couldn't be in the other place because we needed her in the other spot, or it gets complicated when it comes to main characters and rehearsals. So this one time she was off rehearsing with the castle servants, and even though I was a castle servant, I wasn't actually in the scene because I think it was just Lumiere and Cogsworth and her and maybe Mrs. Potts. And so since I wasn't doing anything, I was sitting in front of the stereo in charge of the music for the villagers who were rehearsing the opening number. And I was the person who was in charge of just rewinding it, pressing play, pausing it, rewinding it, so that they could, get the dance moves down and all that fun stuff. And the part where Belle is singing about her favorite part in the book comes on, but Belle isn't there because she's off rehearsing with the castle servants. The other castle servants. So since I'm just sitting there, the director starts singing Belle's part, but I do it even louder, and the director just goes, "Oh, thank you," because she didn't want to sing the part. So I'm just sitting there, literally in front of the stereo knitting because I had just learned how to knit, and just singing to supply the part so that they know when to come in again. Another time was when Belle was actually with the villagers, and we needed her with the castle servants, and it was the part where the Beast is like, "I told you to come down to dinner," and Belle's like, "I'm not hungry." So I'm sitting there opposite the guy playing the Beast with my script open, reading off the lines and adding as much emotion as I can for playing someone who isn't my part. And as we were nearing the dress rehearsals and performances, the girl who played Belle said to me, "If I lose my voice before the performances, I want you to take my part for me, okay?" To which I'm just like, "Okay, whatever." I mean, I'm sure they actually would have had the girl who played Belle in the other cast if our Belle lost her voice, but whatever. And I honestly had so much fun with this play that I think I literally memorized everyone else's lines in addition to my own. So I guess me taking over Belle if our Belle lost her voice really wouldn't have been too much of a problem. So because we were in elementary school, the cast's ages ranged from about 10 to 12. So obviously we're probably too young to know how to ballroom dance, and our directors didn't know how to either. However, I have an older sister who was in ballroom classes at the time and had kind of taught me to waltz, so I had to teach our directors in order to teach Belle and the Beast how to dance to the main title song together. I know, I was that kid. I'm sorry. So that was fun. One of my favorite stories is from dress rehearsal when I was given a mic for the song Human Again, which is absolutely ridiculous because my voice was so loud even back then that I could just project and be heard in every corner of our auditorium. It wasn't really an auditorium, it doubles as the cafeteria, but same difference, right? So when Human Again was over, I went off stage and had to turn off my microphone. But the button is super small and it was tucked into the strap of my apron and I couldn't find it. So I put my hand over the microphone so that no one would hear me whispering to one of the villagers to ask if they would turn off my microphone for me. Well, because of the way I grabbed it, my pulse started beating into the microphone, and I could hear it out in the cafeteria auditorium area. So I let go super fast and I just hear the director's call, "What was that?" It's not my fault, not my fault. And the microphones were super incredibly insane anyway. And that microphone button is so small that one time during our second performance, the Beast came off the stage and I was just chilling, hanging out back there. And he had on these huge, like, werewolf glove things. And because of the claws on them, he couldn't push the button to get his microphone off, so he had to come up to me and be like, "Hey, turn it off." And so I did, because those microphones were insane. But my absolute favorite memory of the entire play was our first performance in front of the whole school. Or actually, it was in front of half of the school because we had two casts and the other cast performed the play to the first half of the school and then us to the second half of the school. You get the idea. So performing in front of the school was our first performance, and when the castle servants are just, waiting inanimate for the villagers to come in so they can, charge, because we all just look like household objects. I'm standing there stock still, but my eyes are open. And the guy who played the baker nearly made me bust a gut on stage while I was trying to be completely stoic and inanimate. And I'll show you why. Pretend you're me. And it was just him coming around and looking at me with this really silly expression on his face, and I almost lost it. So yes, for the next two performances I kept my eyes closed. And honestly, sometimes I wish I could just travel back in time and be 12 again for a couple months just to experience that again, because I had so much fun. Whenever the castle servants weren't needed, we would just sit on the floor of the cafeteria with a tennis ball and roll it between each other and just play this really silly game that we came up with. And I just became such good friends with most of the people in the cast, and I loved the music, and I loved the dancing, and I loved being in theater. But I didn't do it in junior high and high school because my high school was known for its amazing plays, and so the kids who were in theater had no life outside of the plays. And in junior high they just never did a play that I wanted to do. I hope this made you smile in some way to know that I've actually done some really weird things when I was in theater as a 12-year-old. And I hope to see you soon. Alrighty guys, guess what? It's almost spring and it was warm outside. I almost filmed outside, but it was super windy and that would have messed with the mic, so I didn't. This week's song stuck in my head has actually been Be Our Guest from the new live-action version of Beauty and the Beast, and it won't get out of my head, which is fine because I've just been performing it with big sweeping movements. Then we'll sing you off to sleep as you digest. Tonight you'll prop your feet up, but for now let's eat up. Be our guest. Be our guest, be our guest, please be our guest. That's all the singing you're probably ever gonna get from me. Hope you guys all have a great day, week, month, year, you know all that. I will see you guys soon. Goodbye, my dreamers. Just waiting. And I kind of hope that this made you smile in some way, and just to know that I'm not just a boring nerd.